Was it scary for you to feel like, you didn't want to be famous? Like, was that a scary feeling for you to say, like, I want to do something other than what the world has known me for?
Very.
I can imagine. You said it and I was like, gosh, that must have been really scary. Okay. All right. I love it. Thank you. And then following up on that, at what point in time did you know that what you started in your kitchen as a newsletter had the ability and the trajectory to become a company or a brand? Maybe not the one that you have today. I understand that that's like a vision that perhaps was far beyond your wildest dreams at that time in your kitchen. But when or what was that like aha moment or the inflection point when you were like, this can be a thing?
It's a great question. Sometimes I'm still like, is this ever going to be a thing? When you're
It's
like,
a thing, girl. It's a thing.
but when you're like in the weeds of something and you're like, does anybody care? Like, what am I doing? Like, we're all working so hard. But I think I did start to think it was a thing when people would come up to me on the street and say, instead of saying, oh my gosh, I loved you. And, the Royal Tenenbaums, they would say, you know what? Like, this is so crazy, but I read this piece on Goop and then I ended up like taking your advice and going to this hotel. And then this amazing thing happened to me and I met my husband or something, or gosh, I read your article on, adrenal fatigue. And I went to go see my doctor and I like specifically asked for something that I was embarrassed to ask for. And like Goop changed my life. When I started to hear anecdotally those things, I thought like, oh my gosh, maybe this is working on some level. Maybe this is additive for people. Maybe this is, maybe there's something here.
But where did the scary feeling come from? I'm going to go back to the scary feeling. You are an incredible woman in your own right, but we're all people. We're all people. We all have feelings. We all get scared. We all get excited. And I think it's important to place your own humanity in the center of this conversation in some way, which is that you took a leap in your own life, in your own career that wasn't easy for you to take, or that was a scary leap for you to make. So going back to that scary feeling, what did it feel like, or when did you know? I guess maybe you've answered that, right? Like you knew when people started coming up to you that Goop was a thing, or that it had the ability to be its own thing and live in its own world and be a destination for people or for women, for lifestyle, for community. But did it also, like, how did it feel about the information that you were sharing that was enlightening to others, right? It wasn't information at that time that was available many places. Did it feel taboo? Did it feel like you were sharing something that was like your inside secret that everyone thought you were going to be wild and crazy to say out loud? Like, what did that actually feel like for you? Because what it was, and this is me as the outsider, even back then, was looking at you sharing things that nobody else was talking about, right? And so with that comes positive, with that comes negative, with that comes criticism, critique, curiosity, a whole bunch of things. But what did it feel like, or how did you feel about the information that you were sharing? Was it like, hey, everyone should know this anyway? Or was it like, this is my inside baseball secret that I've been using and now I'm sharing it with you and I don't know what you're going to think about me because of like me saying this is what I do at home? Like, what was it really like for you?
I would say it really depended on what the thing was that we were talking about. I mean, always at the core of what we do at Goop is to eliminate shame, help people eliminate shame, ask questions, be curious, be brave, like knock down those taboos that say like, oh, you shouldn't ask about that. And it's so funny to think about now, but when I started, alternative modalities and the idea of wellness, like the autonomy piece of wellness was so new. I mean, but I had sort of been used to it. Like people thought I was crazy that I did yoga in the 90s, or people thought that I was crazy when I started talking about food as medicine, pre-internet. And so I was sort of, I had tried things and they had really worked for me. And so I was sharing and because it's a core tenet of what we do, like I came to expect also by pattern recognition, I would see, oh boy, like we talked about, this thing and everybody freaked out. And then, 6 months later, as you said in the beginning, 18 months later, like, oh, now everybody's talking about gluten-free and there's gluten-free pasta on menus. And so we had so many of those things where we talked about things early and everyone freaked out and then they became more adopted in a mass way culturally. So I stopped being freaked out about that stuff. And I actually sort of like it, especially when it pertains to women's health and sexuality, because we have lived in a patriarchy for so long where, it just has not been acceptable to be our full selves. like the multidimensional aspect of women has been squashed. And guess what? Like, we're funny, we're intellectual, we're maternal, we're sexual, we're a million different things. Like, we are who we want to be. And we need to be able to embrace all of those aspects. And so, you know, I sort of love poking the bear in that way and being like, what's your problem? Like, yes, just because we're smart doesn't mean that we don't want to look our best, or just because we're feminist doesn't mean we aren't allowed to cook dinner for our partner, or whatever the case may be. Like, I've always liked being an iconoclast in that way, I think. And so, you know, although sometimes things have happened where I've been like, uh-oh, you know, this is really like when my ex-husband and I announced our divorce with the conscious uncoupling thing, and it was such a raw time and people were so mean. And I was like, oh my God, this feels like, I don't know that I can, like, this feels really tough. But then again, to see, you know, or have people come up to me and say, you know, you really helped me. Like, I would never, you know, I had this woman come up to me once and she said, you know, my husband hurt me so badly, and what he did, like, I'll never get over it. But because of your piece, you know, I really decided to put the kids first, and I have cultivated a friendship with him, and I've been ruthlessly forgiving. And I was like, oh my God, like, so we impacted one family positively. So that's amazing. So I'm sorry.
You impacted me positively too, I'll tell you that.
Well, that's good.
I wasn't uncoupling at that time. I had already been uncoupled, and not maybe so consciously, but but I was a single mom to my 2 children at that time.